Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Cinema Savvy. It is myself, George, joined once more by Sam. As we enter December, that's a very weird way to do that side of the intro, but as you can tell by the background, by the title, by the updated logo, it is now heading up to Christmas. And for the second year in a row, we're going to be doing our, I guess we can call it annual at this point, Christmas series, the Cinema Savvy Christmas Classics, where we essentially pick a classic Christmas film and we get to have a chat about it. It's not a review. It's not a spoiler discussion. It's not us just talking about behind the scenes facts. It's just a very light-hearted conversation, and we get to talk about a film, maybe what it means to us. Maybe it's a new watch and we're experiencing it for the first time. We're going to report back and just have a lovely little chat as we start to celebrate this time of year. And Sam, not only are you joining us today, as I always have to make sure I credit, not that you got it written in contracts. You are the brains behind this series, not me. So I'm just very grateful we get to host it once more. But how are you doing today?
Oh, George, I'm good, thank you. I mean, and to be fair, he says this. If we take it back a year, I just essentially asked, "Are you doing any Christmas films?" And George went, "No," and it was like, "Oh, we've still got time. Like, you could do though." And it was like, "Yeah, maybe we can just like do some." And that's essentially how it started. So there was no big format or anything, and as you will find out if you've not seen any of these before, there's not a proper format of these. It's more kind of taking a look back. You know, most of these films that we do are at least 10 years old. Most of them 20th century films, but you know, there's so many classics from the 20th century and some newer classics as well. So no, it's great that we're back to do this again. We've got more this year, which is exciting. And yeah, a lot of films that you may or may not have seen. And there's definitely at least one for each of us that we've never seen before in this series this year. So no, very excited to be back doing this as kind of the final big series before 2025, although Skeleton Crew is also about at the moment. So yeah, there's a couple of things happening this month.
It's I'll tell you what, I don't mind doing a bit behind the scenes because it's a more casual video, but the last month or two the last few months have been absolutely steamrolled and jam-packed. There's been TV shows galore, films galore, series we've been doing, other things, designing shorts now, which are going to continue. And it just hit a point where it's like, when I get to December, it's a series where I don't have to. I'm going to watch the films, but I don't have to be like note taking. I don't have to be like putting a brain on. I'm just going to chat about the film nicely. It's not going to be a heavy, I need to spend an hour researching. It's not going to be a, oh God, let me record 4 because 20 more's on the way. It's this year it's 6 episodes. We're spreading them out every Tuesday and Friday, ending on Christmas Eve. We'll talk about the films we're going to do at the end of the video. We did talk about them on the Mount Rushmore series, which has just finished. So the last episode went up on Monday. We released it early because Skeleton Crew was now out on Tuesday, and we have Skeleton Crew videos to do. I'm talking in the past tense. It's the future tense at the time of recording. And I've enjoyed the first episodes, I can say that. And then it gives us the Christmas stuff, and we get Skeleton Crew every week as well. So it's just a nice, more chilled out way to end the year. And I think it's a bit more comforting. With Christmas, it doesn't need to be heavy. It doesn't need to be watch-alongs. It's just throw your head back, put a film on, come watch a video of us chatting about it after, and comment on your thoughts is where I'm going with that. So please do comment your thoughts for this week. I've never mentioned it yet. We're doing Home Alone, the first one. Let us know your thoughts on Home Alone. Let us know your thoughts on this video, and let us know what else you want to see us do Christmas-wise, because not that we're planning next year, but we have a select amount of films we can do. And I guess we could say nicely, the most amount of effort we have to put in is actually determining what the films we're going to do and why these. We're not just picking like, here's the 8 most popular films ever, that's 8, because then next year you'd be like, oh no, we used up all of them. So we're trying to stagger without staggering. It's like a podcast that pops up once a month every year. Is that a fair way to put it?
I think that is very fair. That's quite accurate, actually. Yeah. I mean, if you want a Christmas-themed part of Cinema Savvy, then this is it, and it will happen at this time of year. And Christmas will very rarely be referred to outside of that. I hope you don't mind me saying. This is the time to bottom out, and then we'll see you again next year. So no, and I think that makes it more special anyway. If you're obsessed with Christmas all year round, there's going to be absolutely so many places, and so many people who are equally as obsessed that have so much more information on it. Whereas kind of we're definitely pulling from a little bit of nostalgia in some cases, a little bit kind of our kind of modern interpretations of things, we as we are now compared to as we were when we were kids. Also, kind of looking at kind of our favorite moments or things that stick out to us now. Just everything that makes these films kind of special to us, or for the ones that we've not seen a lot, what made us enjoy it, what we didn't enjoy. And I think that's the good thing about this. It is a discussion.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's going to be us talking about Home Alone, a film. I don't know if we've spoke about it on the channel before. I don't know if I've spoken to you about it, but we kind of knew we would segue into this. And, we're talking. I tried to set up a really good James Bond Skyfall joke, but I'm not going to do it because you are a Bond fan. And some people might lose that. That's a very, I think, in-house Bond joke, the Home Alone thing now. But we will maybe talk about Bond later. Who knows? But released in 1990, directed by Christopher Columbus. Composed by John Williams. I'm going to add that because I will talk about him a little bit later on, actually, because that's just flown into my head about something else. I kind of want to kickstart with this where we do start. We do the letterbox synopsis. And guys, if you're curious about the detail behind the scenes on this, I haven't done one of these for a year. So we were talking. I was like, I'm going to see if I've got anything on my computer from last year. And I was like, behold, I have the PDF schedules. So we do the letterbox synopsis. Just for those of you really unfamiliar with Letterboxd, they do the longest descriptions ever. So for those unfamiliar, 8-year-old Kevin McAllister makes the most of the situation after his family unwittingly leaves him behind when they go on Christmas vacation. But when a pair of bungling burglars set their sights on Kevin's house, the plucky kid stands ready to defend his territory by planting booby traps galore. Adorably mischievous Kevin stands his ground as his frantic mother attempts to race home before Christmas Day. I don't care for spoilers. It's 2024. This came out in 1990. I'm pretty sure that sells you the idea. If you guys haven't rewatched this before today's video, I guess that's also fine, because the purpose of this series is Christmas classics, where we are going for films that are essentially classics that are watched at Christmas. There might be some alternate ones that crop up at other times, but the core of them are going to be films we think a lot of people are familiar with. And if you're not familiar with it, maybe you do want to go watch it. So maybe do watch Home Alone if you haven't, but I'd be really shocked if anyone hasn't. But I guess where we'll kind of kickstart this, Sam, is it's harder on these. Do you have any, not what are your memories of Home Alone, but your background of Home Alone? Is that a better term for a film like this?
I guess so. I mean, I think when we've spoken about films that predate us anyway, but are essentially not too far away. So I guess anything from like the late 80s, early 90s is films generally that will be in the public zeitgeist when we were kids, but maybe not at the forefront. And Home Alone feels like that to me because my initial memories, and I was trying to think back, is just kind of them airing on TV. And at the time, there's only 3 of them. Maybe it should have just stayed that way. So I remember I would see Home Alone 1, 2, and 3. And they didn't get mashed together or anything like that. I was very aware that they were different entities, and at least the first 2 had Macaulay Culkin and stuff. But it was just one of those things where I was like, oh, this is an enjoyable film, and isn't that fun? Again, and I don't know if I mentioned this last year in the videos that we did, but in general, I didn't really own any Christmas films, on home media, and there was very, very few. I know I would have mentioned in the Muppet Christmas Carol video that we did last year that my dad recorded the film off of either Channel 4 or 5 on tape, so we had that, and I'm pretty sure I had The Grinch on video. And things like Love Actually, we eventually got on DVD, and things like that. But there was never I didn't have like a Christmas collection or anything like that. So things like the Home Alone films, I would only see on TV. I don't think I've never owned them, apart from Home Alone 4 on DVD, which is a whole other story as to why I had that. But but it was a film that you would want to see when it was on, and I think why I was excited to watch it for cinema savvy is just because I've not seen it all the way through for so long. As a kid, you go and sit and you watch the film if you want to watch it, especially if you don't own it. Whereas nowadays, it'd be so easy to watch it on streaming. You know, these films do play every Christmas, so you kind of go, oh yeah, I'll watch that. But I never seem to watch the full thing. I always miss either the beginning, the ending, or I can only catch bits. Yeah. So for me, it was a really nice thing to watch this film for the first time in its entirety for at least a decade. And I had a great time with it. And I think it's not my favorite in the series, and I'll probably talk about that a bit later too. But I mean, it set a standard, and it's such a fun concept. And I think all the pieces are here to make for a really successful, celebrated film. I'm sure you mentioned John Williams earlier, having Chris Columbus to direct and John Hughes to write. I think everything just comes together in this early 90s era where I feel like these combinations of behind the scenes people is like gold dust, and things just seem to work. And I think that's why people get very, very nostalgic for this era in film.
I think that's a really good point, and I'm glad you certainly brought up the VHSs. Sorry, that really hit me because we too didn't have VHSs. Sorry to divert into like a home media thing. Not VHSs. We didn't have a Christmas film collection on DVD, and I Facebook memories. I don't know if you go on it. Now, many years ago, oh God, let's say at some point between 2009 and 2011, we're in like a DVD shop in town, and my parents bought like 15, 20 Christmas DVDs for like 20, 30 quid. And at that point, we'd had a load on VHS, and I could distinctly remember which ones we had. We had Jack Frost, had The Polar Bear, not Santa Claus, but there was an animated Santa Claus film we'd always watch on Christmas Eve. We had The Snowman, and maybe one or two others that escape my mind, but they were very much the kid-friendly ones. The Grinch, probably. Yeah, because I think the Grinch had a green packaging. I could be wrong.
Yeah.
So I'm like you. I hadn't really seen Home Alone, and it was one of them. Yeah, as a kid, you sit on TV. You knew it. Everyone knew the poster. It's probably one of the most recognizable posters in the cinema, if I'm completely honest. And as a kid, you can't really appreciate how good this film is till you're older. But it's so amazing as a kid because maybe this is the Jingle the Way conversation we had, maybe the Anakin Skywalker stuff. That, oh, look, the main character's like my age. I wish I could be Home Alone. I wish I could do this to these people. And it's one of them where it's just so entertaining as a child. It's entertaining as an adult. I'd be so curious if I ever had kids to watch this as a parent. And I actually talk about the origin of the film later because that's something that I found out that I would actually love to bring up. But it's one of them where growing up, as you said, you feel like you've seen it, but only until you've actually sat down from start to finish at a conscious age or mind and watched it in full, do you really know that you've seen this film. And when I watched it the other day, my sister's a big Home Alone fan. She's got the box set on DVD of like 4 of them as we got as the years went by. She likes them a lot more than me. As a kid, I used to get Home Alone 1 and 2 mixed up all the time because I knew there were 2 of them and there was snow. And obviously, yeah, okay, as an adult, one's at home, one's in New York. But it's really a really interesting one to sort of dig back to. And this is one I didn't play a lot as a kid. It was on. I enjoyed it, but it wasn't Jingle All the Way. It wasn't The Grinch. As I said, it wasn't one of the VHS ones we had that we played all the time. It wasn't as known to me until probably, again, like maybe when we get the DVD, maybe when I'm even older than that. And now you get things like Disney Plus, where when it gets to Christmas, their marketing is Home Alone's like the front page for their Christmas collection. I don't know if they're doing it this year, but last year and every other year since the Fox merger, the Home Alone has been the forefront of their Christmas like adverts, their Christmas marketing. And that's when you realize it's not only a timeless classic, but it is that people are watching it decades later. Kids are still watching it decades later. They're as entertained as we were back in the day, as people before us would have been. I think there's an 8-9-year-old in 1990. They're actually born in 81. They're in their like mid-40s. So it's one of them where we're almost not even the first Home Alone generation. We're like the second in a very weird, peculiar way. And it was really interesting sitting down watching this last week because, as you said, I haven't probably watched this properly in a long time because every year it's on. I walk into the lounge, someone's watching it. I walk out the lounge after 10, 20 minutes because I know it. I don't need to watch the whole film. I'm not gonna. So it's really interesting watching it in the context of doing this video. And I just think it's one of those films that does anyone dislike Home Alone? That would be my actual question. Like, could there be sort of an active dislike of this film? Maybe somewhere, but I really struggle about how anyone could. And I think at that point, we hit an adult age, and you look back, you're like, wow, like John Williams did Home Alone. It's like, wow, Chris Columbus did Home Alone. John Candy's in Home Alone. I don't know who John Candy was as a kid. You've got all these actors. Even let's go even more recent, Succession, and it's like, holy shit! Like Kieran Culkin's brother is the I forget his name, the one with the glasses that pees the bed.
Fuller.
Yeah, and it's like, and he's gone on to be in Succession, one of the best actors in the entire show on the best telly for the last few years. I'm like, and his origins of. Oh, sorry, I called him Kieran Culkin. It is Kieran Culkin. Macaulay Culkin's the lead. Sorry, I got Macaulay mixed. That's how used I'm talking about Kieran Culkin now because of everything he's in. And again, that then enhances Home Alone, knowing that it's like, you know how like Josh Brolin's in the Goonies, and Josh Brolin became Josh Brolin. You go out to Goonies, like, wow, like that aged really well because Josh Brolin had a great career.
Yeah,
is that a weird
although for me, like Josh Brolin is still the Goonies to me over anything else. Like
I saw
everything else, I'm
like,
like, oh, fine, yeah, he's done other stuff, but I'm like, yeah, like the thing that I know him for is the Goonies. Same with what's his face who plays the main character who went on to like Lord of the Rings.
Oh, Samwise Gamgee.
Yeah. For me, I'm like, he's not. He's a thingy from even though I can't remember his name right now. he's
just think to another generation. He's Bob from Stranger Things. That caught me off guard.
Well, yeah.
It's only for one season. Still, he was great in it, and he had the unfortunate end. But yeah, it's a really interesting one, sort of getting a chance to talk about this. And I guess kind of where we go with this, because it is more of a loose chat. We do have one question: is why do we pick this film? I guess it's going to mean more in some of the other ones we've done, but at this point in time, we're doing a series on Christmas classics. We want to open with a big one. We want to open with not like, oh, it's about views, it's about people, it's about watching. We didn't do Home Alone last year because last year we knew we only did 4 films. We were going to have a massive one in Die Hard. We needed a golden age sort of Hollywood classic, which we did of It's a Wonderful Life. That's already 2 of the biggest Christmas ever made. Muppet Christmas Carol, a film I'd never seen, which I was delighted to have seen, which we opened with, as you mentioned earlier too. And the 4th one, Jingle All the Way, which is again a classic for me and you both. And Home Alone kind of fits into all of them by being like a 50s classic. Like we've just done our Mount Rushmore, and I do recommend it. If you like Christmas films, it's a really nice conversation. And here's a minor spoiler. Home Alone made it to the big 4. And I think we spoke about it being a timeless classic in that video that almost 35 years later now, the film is still as good as it was. It continues to be. And where I mentioned, you had like John Williams, you have Joe Pesci in this as well. The caliber of actors that were doing this, and I still can't comprehend Joe Pesci because it's not like Robert De Niro, right, where he did do a lot of comedies and different films for 20, 30 years. Joe Pesci didn't really do that. And then you go back like, wow, like you can tell he's trying his hardest not to swear on screen. Like you're expecting him to swear, to say something, but he's not. And I don't know. It's just kind of great. Like it's a dumb question to say, why do we pick it? But it is on the schedule, and that's me keeping it on the schedule. But I'm kind of curious with you as well. Like, did you, even before we sat down and spoke together, did you know this year we were going to do this subconsciously, or?
I didn't know that we were going to. I think I was a little, not against it, but I was a little bit. I was wary of putting too many big hitters on here. I think my reason eventually for having it here is because we could so easily do Home Alone 2 next year or the year after. I guess for some sequels just don't cut it, but because this is a really successful sequel and one that a lot of people do actually prefer, myself included, to Home Alone 1, like I think it's something that people, would enjoy to see. And I would especially love to talk about. So I think that was a reason to have this on here. But I also think compared to a lot of other films, things like Christmas films, I think as timeless as some of them are, I think there's also something really beloved about films that are very of the time, and you can see that. And because Christmas is a time for family, and a lot of nostalgia comes back during that time when you're either seeing people that you've not seen for a while or families being together. um, you kind of want to have that feeling in kind of everything that you do. And if you're watching a film, so especially if you're saying about the people who were children when they were watching that when this film came out and they're in the mid 40s, got their own families, I can't imagine anything nicer than watching that with your family, whether it's kind of the people that you grew up with or kind of children nowadays, and kind of seeing the colorful lights, kind of just the way people are dressed, the technology, all of these things that go into especially an early 90s Christmas film. So I think there's something quite special about any of the films that are out during this time. So I think, yeah, we made a note last year to kind of do different types of films. And I think had we not been so like we need to do Jingle All the Way just because we both really wanted to watch it, Home Alone probably could have been suggested last year. But I think it was right to kind of wait because we did Muppet Christmas Carol and do this year. And I think, yeah, I'm glad that we did wait, and I'm glad to have seen it again. So yeah, I mean, we will tease kind of what's to come because there are films that kind of match what we've done in the
Yeah.
past to that certain archetype.
Yeah, no, I like that as well. It's very well said, and kind of sticking with this. I mean, again, another sub theme of this is we always talk about, well, what is the meaning of Christmas within this film? We don't mean it in the deep metaphor, like what does it mean? But it's one of these Christmas films, and even if you want some more behind the scenes and how we operate with this, last year we did Die Hard on Christmas Eve on the premise that guess what, Die Hard set on Christmas Eve. It was the obvious go-to to put out on Christmas Eve, and Home Alone, whilst it is set at Christmas, it's very much one that couldn't go. I mean, Die Hard can go on at any time. Let's be honest, any time of year as well, not just December. But Die Hard kicks harder on Christmas Eve. I don't think Home Alone is a film where it's like so centric to a day or an occasion. It is like it's a Christmas film. It can go on at any point, and actually, it really works more that you can watch. I mean, to start off watching the Christmas films, because I don't watch too many Christmas films here normally, but something felt right about starting off with something like Home Alone compared to maybe some of the others we're going to pick. And as you said, when we sort of tease and say what's to come, that might make a bit more sense as to why we've opted for this. But obviously, it is a I don't even want to talk about like the robbers and the thieves, but it's like Christmas within this. The whole film set there. It's not even the meaning of Christmas. It is actually I'm not going to get into personal things, but the real core of this is actually the message of having a loving and supporting family. And whilst you could say it focuses on Macaulay Culkin or on his mother, you see how the film starts where everyone hates him. It's like Larry David. Things are happening to him by accident. It's not completely his fault, but it sort of is his fault. And then I hope I wake up and you're all gone. And it happened, and it's the best news he could have ever had. That feels more real than any other film where a kid would scream and get scared. It's so great, but then obviously as the film gets on, and as you're getting to the ending, the reunion of him and his mum is perfect. And even the older brothers like Buzz and that, who were like, yeah, you know what, you actually did right, fair enough. It hits harder as an adult compared to a kid. It's great as a kid. I just think even as an adult, it's really like delightful. I don't know. I don't have a giant family like him. I couldn't. I mean, I love a lot of my aunties and uncles, but the thought of going away with all my aunties and uncles at Christmas for 3 days to Paris, no, thank you. I'm sorry, no.
Yeah, I watched the film and I was just like, I hate his family. Like his family suck. I was so frustrated for him because I'm like, do you know what? First of all, so privileged to live in that massive house. Two, so privileged to get to go to France at Christmas. Okay, all the adults are in like what, first class as well. By the way, like
yeah, and the
hello.
kids go economy.
Yeah, like okay. So I mean, and I think that's where being as a kid, you just kind of go, oh yeah, I'm going to agree with Macaulay Culkin, but as an adult, I'm like, no, you put yourselves ahead of like ensuring the welfare of all your kids. So I have less sympathy for them in the get-go. I do appreciate when as soon as they know, it's like, right, okay, we are going to call everyone. We are going to do anything that we can to get back. And all that stuff. I think Catherine O'Hara's performance is really, really lovely because she can go strict mother, but she's also like, my children and everything. I will use every cent to get back to ensure that my child's okay. So that's really sweet. I mean, I'm glad that it does go to like, oh, it gets to Christmas Eve, and it's like, will she get back for Christmas Day? And obviously, it's in line with what they called Harry and Marv to rob the house as well. It all lines up really nicely, and it has a great emotional ending. I think the Marley character, I think, is someone that I was like, oh, it's just kind of weird to put this character in there. But I think it's nice that he's in it to kind of have, if this is maybe not emotionally tugging at you a little bit, then this kind of B plot about, or C plot really, about this old man who just wants his family, but has but because of past situations, it's not allowed him to, and then he gets that kind of presence in the end. I think is really lovely, and that's probably more emotional for me over the McAllister's coming back. But yeah, it's I think the major theme is family in that, no matter what, you've got to stick together. And that nothing like an international holiday should be ensuring that you're all together. But I am glad at the end that it's only the parents and the siblings come back, that the auntie and uncle and their kids don't come back, because that beginning makes my heart go, because I'm just like, there's too many people. It's a lot.
I'm glad you brought up the neighbor, because how I spoke that to me growing not Mission Impossible, sorry, Home Alone 1 and 2 blend a lot together. I would always get the pigeon lady and the old neighbor mixed up, and I don't really know why. They're two different things, but it's that, again, that you're growing up, you've got vivid images of films, I guess, because it is Macaulay Culkin being home alone, not with his parents. They'd sort of blend until you really got to the right age, and it's something where that hits deep. That hit deep watching that the other day, if I'm being totally honest with you. That he that's the only time he can see his granddaughter is when she is at the church, and he can't be there with the other relatives there, and I'm too scared to pick up the phone to speak, because the thought of ringing and it failing, then not ringing at all is unbearable. And I think that's probably the same for a lot of people that have had family issues. I don't want to go into Creed, but that's just clicked in my head that that's what happened in the Creed 2, where Rocky falls out with his son and he's too scared to pick up the phone to ring him. And the sad reality of that is that obviously his son passed away in real life, which is why they didn't, I think they put a cameo of someone else in to play him, but I understood them going away from that somewhat. But it's a very real thing, and I think that's really what I like from Christmas films, is that they get to tug on the heartstrings a little bit more whilst having the fun. And when you're talking about fun, this film has all of it, if I'm really honest. And I know we're not getting to our favourite scenes yet, but I want to bring up a discussion point I've not written down. It's not even actually a major discussion point, but I found out how this film's idea came to be. I don't know if you knew this already, if it's one of the common knowledge things. John Hughes was packing up for a holiday. He didn't leave his kid, thankfully. But he literally just thought, I'm guessing maybe he forgot to pack something and realized 10 minutes later, but apparently he was just sat there and just an image came, just like, what would happen if I left my kid at home and we were going on holiday? And then he started writing a treatment, and that's how Home Alone, it literally just came to him by packing for a holiday or getting ready for a holiday. And I thought, it's kind of crazy that we know there is creators, we know there's writers, we know that everyday things affect how things are made, which is always great to do, but to have it be just an idea that came into a very incredible person's head, who could have quite easily directed this film himself with what he's been capable of throughout his career, to have not done that, and then instead go and hire Chris Columbus, who at this point in time, I'll be truthfully honest, I don't know if it's the Chris Columbus that we all knew growing up, because obviously, when the first thing I saw him in was Harry Potter. which we'll talk about maybe later, but this is only his third film. And he'd been writing on the Goonies, he'd wrote Gremlins, I think, and a couple of other things, but he wasn't the Chris Columbus we knew from today. So for John Hughes to pick Chris Columbus and really put him on track for the career he would go on to have, I think it's quite remarkable. And I kind of want to chuck in with that. I don't know if you saw the John Williams documentary recently.
Not yet. No.
He spoke about Home Alone. So you think this is John Williams? He's composed, some of the biggest films ever. It's a 1 hour 40 documentary. So there's going to be a lot of classics that aren't brought up once that he would have done. But it was almost like a victory every time he spoke about a non-Star Wars or Spielberg film. It was like, yes, we're getting time dedicated to this other thing. And John Williams spoke about Home Alone, that he said that, I think they actually Chris Columbus on for an interview, and he basically said that we had a composer, it didn't work. John Williams, his agent, reached out to us and was like, do you want us to see if John Williams is interested in composing this film for you? And then the camera cuts to John Williams, and he sat there like, I never really made a Christmas film before, and particularly one about, like a child at home by himself. And I thought that was quite appealing to me, so I just went and made it. And it was such a simple explanation. And it was really interesting, even getting hey, John Williams' agent found out about this film and would like to see if there's interest. Like, we didn't really hear about composers getting gigs, do you? And again, with John Williams, you just assume that everyone begs him to take a project and then he does it. And off that conversation, he then diverts into the Harry Potter talk, where he's like, I had such a great time working with Chris Columbus. When he took on Harry Potter, it was something similar. I got to do a film for kids, about kids, but this time it's fantasy, not Christmas. But I thought it was really interesting. Again, having powerhouse names like John Williams, that doesn't make it a Christmas classic by any means, but it really adds to, I think, this film's prestige in comparison to others. And I'm not trying to compare it to other films, but I just think the John Williams, it's a very good score as well. As you would expect from a John Williams film. But does a Home Alone film need a John Williams score? Probably not. Does Hans Zimmer do Christmas films? He did The Holiday, right? That sort of one, I think, apparently. I've never seen it.
I've not seen that either, but I think people would say it's a Christmas film, I think. Yeah, I mean, I said those three names earlier. I said about Chris Columbus, John Hughes, and John Williams, and I think it's just one of those cases where I just think everything just works together really well. You said about Chris Columbus, yeah, he hadn't done loads before, but he'd written Gremlins, he'd written Goonies, he'd done bits of stuff before, but then he really, the 90s is where kind of his directional era really properly begins. Obviously, I'm looking at what he did now, and you get this film, Home Alone 2, Mrs. Doubtfire, massive one, Stepmom is a massive one, Bicentennial Man I used to like as a kid, I've not seen in a very long time. Obviously the Harry Potter films, there's a lot of great stuff there. John Hughes obviously had written Home Alone, did Planes, Trains and Automobiles, Pretty in Pink, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Home Alone 2, Home Alone 3, 101 Dalmatians, Miracle on 34th Street, the 90s version anyway. And then obviously John Williams in this era, he'd just done Last Crusade the year before, Hook the year after, Home Alone 2 the year after that, Jurassic Park and Schindler's List the year after that. It's such a strong era for these creatives. And I'm sure for so many of the other, behind the scenes team, the crew, everyone. Because this film just feels so solid. And I think, sometimes you can tell, maybe this isn't someone's best work, or, it's maybe that an early work or whatever. But a lot of, things just blend and hit, so strongly. And, you see that in that behind the scenes team with the cast as well. I mean, Macaulay Culkin had already done things before this, bits of things. So, I mean, that he was already kind of up and coming. And then obviously Joe Pesci, Daniel Stern, Catherine O'Hara, John Candy, there's so many kind of, iconic, cast members in this film. And so it makes me happy that I'm like, oh great, I'm glad that I grew up with a film like this. Because I mean, it's like it will stand the test of time always. And yeah, it's a lot. I think Christmas films have the opportunity to be a bit more cheesy. I think that's part and parcel of, oh, you're allowed to be a little bit more, this is all about the love and this is all about the family and, tug on the emotional heartstrings. But I think it earns it in many ways. And I think this film earns that, by, allowing you to kind of follow these characters and go, okay, they're going through these arcs that allow them to deserve the endings that they get. The wet bandits get caught, but I mean, they've not like dead. It's not like it feels
Not
very much like
anyone.
but yeah, it feels very much like a Scooby-Doo ending. Like, oh, if it wasn't for that meddling kid, all of that. Families reunite. It's sweet. And I think that's why a lot of people still hold it up today.
No, absolutely. And I'm glad you brought up John Candy. He filmed his cameo in a day. I mean, I say cameo. He's in 2 scenes, but it feels a bit more than a cameo. But I know that him and John Hughes had a very, very close working relationship. And I believe that it was one of them. I don't know if you've heard these stories. I think Brad Pitt's famously always brought up one of these, that under SAG like unions, there's like a minimum you can get paid if you're in a role on a feature film, blah blah blah. So he did it as a favor. He just did it as a favor for John Hughes, and he was the only person that was asked to improv. And he did one day of his entire shoot was one day, and he did a 23-hour shoot to get his 2 scenes done, and he was paid a grand total of something like $414, which is kind of crazy too, which is great. But I guess that is that, Brad Pitt's famous one for Deadpool 2 was like, I'm in it for a shot, but I had to be paid I had to be paid a minimum because of this, so I took the least I ever could. And I like it when actors do that, because it shows it's not always about the money. It is about, hey, we want to work with this director, we want to work with this film, we want to help a friend out or whatnot. And it's another great role of his. I saw, not last year, maybe the year before. What was it last year? I saw Planes, Trains, Automobiles for the first time, and I absolutely loved it. Again, John Hughes one as well. Really recommend it. But yeah, I mean, we're speaking about that. Should we talk about some favourite scenes? Because we've not spoke about a lot yet. Again, it's weird doing this because it's not like the structure of normal review. We just get to segue our conversations really nicely. But I'm just desperate to basically talk about the end, because I don't even know, the final act, the third act, whatever they want to call it.
Yeah.
The moment when the house is geared up, it's one of my favorite third acts in a film, because everything has been set up for the first hour 10 maybe. It is perfectly there. The robbers are, they've been shown out to be idiots a few times. They've worked out that it's him. But I don't think I could ever get bored of watching this scene. And it's not like a maniacal kid turned adult who likes torture. I even like the jokes on, like, oh, they never survived a brick getting dropped on head. I was like, yeah, that's kind of the point. Like, you called it Scooby-Doo, and that's not escaped my mind. It probably won't now. Like, it is literally like a live-action Scooby-Doo film. It's like, if it wasn't for those damn kids, we'd have got the treasure or whatever. And I think just the repetitive torture sequences, the outwitting them outwitting him, and then the neighbor getting involved, it's just so much fun. And when you kind of mention that, I haven't seen the film, sat down and watched the film, because there's clips of this always around, meme culture, brain rot, whatever people call it these days. It's there, it's used throughout the year, but even when it's at Christmas, it is one of them. There's even a Lego fucking Home Alone, and that comes with all the traps. It comes with an iron print on his face, like.
Not my friends have just got that. My friends have just got that. Yeah.
You know what? I'm not going to divert into a Lego chat, but I don't think it would ever get the better of me. But the Lego Home Alone set would probably be so much fun to build at Christmas.
It's like an advent. You make an advent calendar thing. Like, I'll do this a day, and I think my friends were saying, oh yeah, it's separated into this amount of bags. You can actually do that. You can set up different segments throughout the entirety of December, and then it finally goes all together on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day.
And that would be so much fun. It'd be better than most Lego Advent calendars too. I appreciate it'd be more expensive than them, but it's one of them where it really adds to it. The scenes are so iconic. Of course, when you open the Lego house, it's going to have all those scenes in it. And I just think, I don't know, that's segueing off my favorite scene stuff, but I just can't get past the ending. Maybe it is that lost childhood thing, like, I wish I could have sort of used my brain to torture some thieves. And apparently, the logic of the robbers being the villains were, what's the most terrifying thing for a child if they were home alone? And apparently, they whittled it down to robbers, which is probably. I mean, he's loving his life until the robbers turn up, and then he's petrified, hides into bed. That thinking about it, it probably would be like. I don't know if you remember the first few times you were left alone. I was quite young, if I'm being really honest. Nothing dodgy from my parents or anything. It was more like mum worked full time as soon as I was about 8 or 9. So I got to start being home alone at that age. Didn't get any home alone shenanigans. Didn't get left in another country, but even when I'd been in another country, I'd be able to be home alone, and I'd say it taught me independent skills. Not that that's got anything to do with home alone, but it's really interesting because I've got relatives that are like 18 who can't act alone at all. They can't do anything independently. I've got friends in their 20s who can't travel by themselves, which personally I think is either bollocks, and something's gone wrong there. But the concept of home alone, I think, is more exciting because I did used to get not left at home, very sensibly at home alone, trusted to be home alone. Weird tangent. Does that make any sense as to maybe why I like it a bit more?
I mean, it kind of does. I mean, I think I didn't really start being left home alone until I was like 11, until I started high school, really. Because a lot of the time I'd be, my school was around the corner from my house, so I could just go home, and if no one was there, then it was fine because someone would be, within the hour or something. And I'd always make sure everything was locked. But I was like I'm like that still today. Like if I'm alone, I'll make sure that everything's locked, that I don't, take it lightly. And anything could happen. I think something like robbers, I think is a universal, realistic thing where it's like, okay, a kid would be scared. But at the same time, robbers can be funny and they can be stupid. I think anything else that could have gone wrong. I can't even remember. I'm sure part of me feels like I never realized it was Joe Pesci who was the policeman at the beginning at some point. I feel like, but even that's just so, and I think that's one of my favorite scenes is probably that beginning thing, even though it's very overwhelming with all the people around. I think you get that Christmas vibe of where everyone's stressing about things going right and stuff. And Joe Pesci's just standing there, just like trying to get someone's attention, and he's just getting absolutely nothing, which I think is really funny. So yeah, I'd call it that, and then obviously the ending as well. But I think one of the good things about a film like this, where a lot of it is centered in one location, is that you get to see that. And I love when films will kind of build up something, and then you can see, oh yeah, this came from here, and oh, we saw that at the beginning, or oh, Buzz's tarantula, or oh, the tree house, and oh, the scary basement. You get to kind of view the house with Kevin and the items within it and the things that he goes out and gets, and we see it all come together. And I think that's part of the exciting thing, is that you are building towards this third act. And then yeah, it's a great third act, and I think a lot of people are here to watch this film for that ending. It's not, I guess, in hindsight, particularly overstated. Like it has its kind of big moments, but a lot of it is really quite simple. There's not massive traps being made and all of this stuff. I think Home Alone 2 kind of goes to the next step with that, in terms of what these kind of traps are going to be. But all of this feels like quite relative to what an 8-year-old could do. Probably, I definitely don't think I could do this at 8 years old. I probably would be cowering under a bed or in a wardrobe or something, if I was in Kevin's position. So
it's like that joke you always see, like if you got, it's really random, if you got any friends that have bought like a sword or like a samurai sword, this isn't like a dodgy knife thing, by the way, people. You get, where I'm coming from is like, if you go to Comic Cons, there are vendors that sell swords, and it's like the sword from Kill Bill, the sword from Lord of the Rings, the sword from this. I've got a friend who has the Kill Bill samurai sword. I've got 2 friends that have that, actually. That's just made me realise. Don't know if the second one's as sharp. I got the chance to once like slice a bottle in half, and I was surprised it actually worked. And it's, you see this as I was like, if someone ever came into my house, I'd get them with this and that, and it never happened. But Home Alone is that. What could you turn into a weapon in your house? Like, what could you do? And even the tarantula being set up at the start of the film in one of the opening scenes, and it's always the Michael Jordan cardboard cutouts visible in that scene with the tarantula when he first goes to Buzz's room at the start. That's one of my favorite little bits. Is the ingenuity. Forget the kid having ingenuity. The ingenuity of the writers, or the director, or whoever came up with the idea. Like, let's get the cardboard cutouts and have it on like a little system, like a train, so they all think it's a party and stuff. And I love it. It puts a smile on my face because I think it's genius from a writing perspective, let alone because these seasoned robbers, they're going to go back to the house again to check. Maybe they went a day after, and they're eventually going to find out. And when they do find out, how are they going to find out? And I really enjoy it with that. There's so many great little moments, and
I mean,
I think that's
her saying Kevin. I mean, that when the realization on the plane is, just another favorite thing, because it's like, oh no, I'm forgetting something. Oh, is it, did I lock the door? Is it the stove, or is it the garage door? And then like, oh yeah, it's the garage door. And she's like, no, that's not it. And then it's the fact she doesn't even need to go to economy. By the way, just to bring that up again, she doesn't need to go to economy and then look at all of the kids and realize, oh, one of them's missing. She knows she's not seen Kevin the entirety of the day. And and then just the way that Catherine O'Hara does it, I think, is just excellent. And obviously she almost like perfectly replicates it in Home Alone 2 as well. And that same shot, it's just so iconic.
And even building up to him being left alone, it's like, how would they actually do it? And it's like, oh look, the neighbor's kid stuck his head in.
Annoying little neighbor kid, like,
and it's that, and they're in separate cars, and then we're in business class, so we're not going to check on the kids back there. I love, obviously, you think the kids at that point would clock it. But I love how it then builds. And it's like, not like it's realistic, but it's like they've made the conscious effort to try and really pad out, at least be on the flight to the point you've forgotten about your son, because then you ain't going to be able to turn it around. And I like that. I like it when it takes the effort to do it. And again, it's fun because it's not trying to be realistic. It's trying to be a comedy. It's trying to be a family film. It's trying to be a Christmas film. And it sort of delivers with those, if I'm honest with you. I mean, I'm trying to think of other scenes to talk about. Do you want to talk about any of the scenes we might have missed? I know we spoke about the neighbor in the church sequence. Probably one of my favorites.
That's really cute. And again, I think the ending with him, you're just watching it from Kevin's perspective, and I think the gratitude, and I think it's something that's done in Home Alone 2 as well. It's kind of it's a person who, it's, I guess, another kind of smaller theme is looks can be deceptive, and that's someone who looks like they could be shady. I guess maybe it's not something that you want to kind of look for, like, abide by all your life, but sometimes people who look shady are shady, but you don't know the whole story. And for some, there may be legit reasons why someone looks like they could be scary, but they're actually really not. So I think that whole thing is really cute. And I think, that was one of the most emotional moments where, Kevin sees him and just the joy and kind of the gratitude and all of that. And I think especially when it's like a cross-generational thing where it's kind of a younger person learning from an older person and vice versa, it's like you're never too old to learn, and that, things can easily change if kind of you make an effort. I just think it's really lovely, and it's just so simple. And I think that's the other thing about this movie, and when you were saying about John Hughes and kind of the creation of it, the concept is so simple. It's such a simple thing, but it's done so effectively. And I think sometimes, especially nowadays, it's like we'll have a concept, but we'll subvert it, or we'll go so completely out there that it doesn't really have a ground in. Whereas this just feels, this in some way could happen.
Probably
one in a million, it could happen. But I think the whole film is just so great. And I guess another scene, and you mentioned it, is Kevin, realizing that he's alone, and kind of, it's like all those things that you would do if you found out you were home alone for the first time. And it's like, oh, I'm gonna go and bounce on all the beds. I'm gonna go through people's stuff, or I'm going to kind of put, what is it, aftershave or something on his face, and he's like screaming. I feel like Drag Race UK has ruined that. You won't understand the reference, but it's just Scarlett Harlot did way too much of that. But that whole thing's just so funny. Yeah. I mean, it's difficult because there's a lot of great scenes in this.
Definitely. And I kind of have one more thing if I jump in. It's the you mentioned obviously the creation of John Hughes. It didn't even need to be set at Christmas.
No.
Well, and it's more of a rhetorical, but if this hadn't been set at Christmas, I don't think it'd be anywhere near as popular. No. I think it works because Christmas is about family. This film ultimately is about family, and I think it really works. Maybe when he was packing up that trip, it was a Christmas holiday. Who knows? But it's one of those where I love that it ended up being set this time. Yeah. Do you get certain Christmas films? Sorry, I would say like love Shane Black, but like he'll have some films where it happens to be set at Christmas for like a day or two. It doesn't make it a Christmas film. He has somewhere the entire film set at Christmas and it has a purpose somewhat to a story. I'll take that conversation and go with it. But this isn't one of those. This is like Christmas is, granted it could have been any time here, it's nailed down and it really, really does enhance what's going on and what they're all doing.
Yeah, all I was going to say is that, for some films, there's a ticking clock, and that needs to happen. For Christmas, the automatic ticking clock is Christmas Day. That's, you don't want to be alone at Christmas. If it was done any other time of year, I think there'd have to be a really contrived reason as to why. Obviously, as a parent, as a family, you would want to get back to your child as soon as possible. That's, doesn't matter. But it just adds something. And I think Christmas adds so much to the scenery, to kind of the feel of the film. And it would completely lose that. I think there's other things that you would be able to do if this was done in the summertime. Or something, but I think it was absolutely the correct decision to do this at Christmas. And I don't know if any Home Alone film past Home Alone 4 does anything outside of Christmas. I think it would be interesting if it did, but I feel like this franchise is a Christmas series, and it started with that's its strength. So I feel like if there is any more from this series, it probably should stick to the theme, but I guess it would depend on the plot and the story.
No, definitely. And kind of being said, I'll be honest, I don't have too much more to add. I mean, if we're doing the final thoughts, I've sort of glowingly raved about this for almost 50 minutes, but I love it. It's just one of them. I'll probably enjoy it for the next 30 years. I've enjoyed it for the first 28 or so. And I think it's a film that will continue as the years go by, as we do get further generations blow and blow. And as you spoke about some of these, like these 80s, some of these 90s films, certainly 20th century films, I feel like Christmas films age better than normal films do. And that's not any disrespect to normal films. That's the Christmases that always have a unified meaning that hasn't evolved over time. And with that, the films don't need to evolve. You'll get new great ones, and hopefully we do. And it seems like the art of making Christmas films aren't as good as they used to be. It seems very different, probably too much politics in the sense of we can only put it in cinemas for 3-4 weeks. That sort of politics, I don't mean anything else. And, there hasn't really been any over recent years to sort of segue. But yeah, my final thoughts on Love Home Alone. It's very deserving of being spoken about, and it's been lovely to chat about it from at least my end.
Yeah. I mean, I echo that. I think I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I purely gave it that because I know that I will be giving Home Alone 2 more. I think, again, it's such a fantastic film. It's maybe not my favorite Christmas film, but objectively, it's one of the best. And I'll stand by that no matter what. I guess my controversial take is that, as a kid, I preferred Home Alone 3 to Home Alone 1. So it would go 2, 3, 1, which I will watch them again and just kind of, because I may have a different perception as an adult. I don't know. Something about Home Alone 3 I just really enjoyed. But yeah, it's a fantastic film. I don't believe any more should be made, even though I've said all this stuff about, potentially what could come. I'm I think there's been enough. The only way I'd be like, you know what, that's right, is if they did bring Macaulay Culkin and Catherine O'Hara back, and they did something with that. You know, he's married to Brenda Song. Get her in there. You know, they're married. They've gone away. You know, Grandma. You know, Grandma Kate lives across the country now. She's got to get there. Use the original house. I don't know. It's all been updated,
Get
but
Kieran
still was the
Culkin in.
same. Yeah, I felt there's something there, but it would have to feel right, and it would have to be right. I don't think it will happen, but I think that would be the only way I'd like to know what I would pay to watch that. I would go to the cinema and watch that.
Yeah, I think people would even watch it if it wasn't someone being left home alone. If it was the original cast coming back for something, maybe not a reunion, but like if that ever happened. I know the buzz was in the Disney Plus one, which we don't talk about.
Oh, really?
But
Oh.
that was more of a like a nod, wink, wink role. If they ever brought some of the originals back, I'd imagine I wouldn't be surprised if Disney have tried it. That's probably a better answer, isn't it? I bet they've tried it. But no, I kind of echo that too. It would be, if they were to ever do more, I'd like it to have some originals, especially as most of them hypothetically could get back. You could get Joe Pesci out of retirement again. Scorsese's done it once before. Why not once more? So yeah, it would be interesting. And I guess kind of with that, should we talk about a few of the films we're gonna do across the next few weeks?
Yeah.
So we mentioned they're going to go up every Tuesday and Friday. This is going up on Friday, the 6th of December. Going up on Tuesday, we're doing the original Miracle on 34th Street. Although I will add, there is a chance that maybe we switch 1 and 2 around. If we do, you will get a different upload. But at the moment, we're doing Miracle on 34th Street next. Oh, do I say the one we're doing after, or should I hold that off as a bigger announcement? Because that's the controversial one, isn't it?
We can hold off on that for now. I think let's announce,
we'll announce that next one, and that will be one. We'll have 2 where we have 3 of us. They'll be the middle 2. That's so weird to say, but yes, we'll. If you want to know all of them, we did speak about them on the Mount Rushmore, but on the week to weeks, we won't do so. So, and it's not Die Hard. If you looked at our intro earlier, we used the poster from the last episode we did. So, yes. But yeah, I don't have too much more to add. Sam, it's been lovely doing this chat again. I'm excited because I've not seen the original Miracle on 34th Street. So
never have I.
I've seen the 90s remake. I love the 90s one. And it'll be interesting to see the original before then. And as we said with the series, we get to see films we've not seen before. We get to see films like this, which we do know and we adore. And certainly this time around, we can say that we'll be watching 2 alternate Christmas films. I guess that's a better term for it. One of which is very out there, and that's going from Friday the 13th, which works perfectly for what we want it to be.
It's not a random Friday the 13th film, by the way. That
no, it's not.
Like, although I would be intrigued by Jason
Christmas Friday
at Christmas. Yeah.
Who knows? Maybe we've given them an idea. Let's get copyright going. But yeah, that is going to round it out for today's one. So once again, thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoy this video. You enjoy the series. It's a bit different to what we do. It's not as hardcore. It's not as deep diving. It's a measured chat, and we do want to hear you. So let us know your thoughts on Home Alone. Let us know what Christmas films you enjoy watching this time of year. As I said, our Mount Rushmore's up, where we get to talk about a lot more. And if you want to go back on the playlist, it's on the homepage now. We've got last year's videos, as we mentioned earlier: Die Hard, Muppet Christmas Carol, Jingle All the Way, and It's a Wonderful Life. And we'll be back on Tuesday with Miracle on 34th Street. If you want to find us on social medias, linktree.com/cinemasavvy. That puts you to our Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, and Blue Sky. As we kind of said earlier, December's a quieter month. We're doing Skeleton Crew and these. There are a few new releases. There's going to be Mufasa for some reason. There's going to be Sonic 3, Craven the Hunter, and there's a random anime Lord of the Rings coming out next week. So there are new releases coming still, but the key for this month is a nice measured discussion on Christmas films. So, Sam, as I said, thank you so much for jumping on, and to everybody watching at home, we'll see you on the next one. Take care.